Chapter 28, A Miracle and Still a Maybe. 2 weeks after his exhilarating keynote address, Barack Obama's memoir, Dreams from My Father, A Story of Race and Inheritance, was republished. It rushed up the charts and snatched rave reviews in the final months of 2004. Toni Morrison, the queen of American letters and the editor of Angela Davis's iconic memoir 3 decades earlier, deemed Dreams from My Father quite extraordinary. Obama had written the memoir in the racially packed year of 1995 as he prepared to begin his political career in the Illinois Senate. In the book, he claimed to be exempt from being an extraordinary Negro, but racist Americans of all colors would in 2004 begin hailing Barack Obama with all his public intelligence, morality, speaking ability, and public success as such. The extraordinary Negro hallmark had come a mighty long way from Phyllis Wheatley to Barack Obama, who became the nation's only African American in the U.S. Senate in 2005. With Phyllis Wheatley, racists despised the capable black mind, but with Obama, they were turning their backs on history so that they could see him as a symbol of a post-racial America, an excuse to say the ugliness is over. But it was a devastating natural and racial disaster that summer that will burst the bubble of post-racial make-believe and, if anything, force a tense debate about racism. During the final days of August 2005, Hurricane Katrina took more than 1,800 lives, forced millions to migrate, flooded the beautiful Gulf Coast, and caused billions in property damage. Hurricane Katrina blew the colorblind roof off America and allowed all to see, if they dared to look, the dreadful progression of racism. For years, scientists and journalists had warned that if southern Louisiana took a direct hit from a major hurricane, the levees could fail and the region, a poor black community, would be flooded and, yes, destroyed. No one did anything. And once it happened, the response from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, was delayed. It was rumored that the Bush administration directed FEMA to delay its response in order to amplify the destructive reward for those who would benefit. Whether or not this is true, they were delayed. And people were drowning, literally. It took 3 days to deploy rescue troops to the Gulf Coast region, more time than it took to get troops on the ground to quell the 1992 Rodney King rebellion. And then came the media, this time spinning tales of looting and gruesome sensationalized stories of children in the Superdome where people were being sheltered, having their throats cut. In the era of colorblind racism, no matter how gruesome the racial crime, no matter how much evidence was stacked against them, racists were standing before the judge and pleading not guilty. But how many criminals actually confess when they don't have to? From civilizers to standardized testers, assimilationists have rarely confessed to racism. Enslavers and Jim Crow segregationists went to their graves claiming innocence. And just as the presidents before him have, including Reagan, Lincoln, and Jefferson, George W. Bush will likely do the same. On February 10, 2007, Barack Obama stood in front of the old state capitol building in Springfield, Illinois, and formally announced his presidential candidacy. He stood on the same spot where Abraham Lincoln had delivered his historic House Divided speech in 1858. Obama brimmed with words of American unity, hope, and change. No one saw him coming. As a matter of fact, everyone said Hillary Clinton was the inevitable choice until Obama came through Iowa and snatched it from underneath her nose. By February 5th, 2008, Super Tuesday, the Tuesday in the presidential election season when the greatest number of states hold their primary elections, Americans had been swept up in the Obama Yes We Can crusade of hope and change, themes he embodied and spoke about so eloquently in his speeches that people started to hunger just for him. But in mid-February, his perceptive and brilliant wife, Michelle Obama, told a Milwaukee rally, for the first time in my adult life, I am really proud of my country. And not just because Barack has done well, but because I think people are hungry for change. That's all racists needed to pounce on and call her unpatriotic, to try to tear the Obamas down and discredit them. Racist commentators became obsessed with Michelle Obama's body, her near 6-foot chiseled and curvy frame, simultaneously semi-masculine and hyper-feminine. They searched for problems in her black marriage and family, calling them extraordinary when they did not find any. Then they found a scapegoat in one black America's most revered liberation theologians, the recently retired pastor of Chicago's Large Trinity Unity Church of Christ, Jeremiah Wright. He had officiated the Obama's wedding and spoke honestly about his feelings for a country that had worked overtime to kill him and his people. But the media used Wright's critiques of America to slander Obama. Obama tried to brush it off, tried to downplay his relationship with Pastor Wright, but nothing was working. So instead, he delivered the speech of his life. It was called A More Perfect Union. It was a speech on race, and it teetered back and forth between painful assimilationist thought and bold anti-racism. And it worked. It pushed him on, past a barrage of obstacles to come, including the one fueled by Donald Trump himself that challenged whether or not Obama was an American. And on November 4, 2008, a 64-year-old recently retired professor, Angela Davis, cast a vote for a major political party for the first time in her voting life. She had retired from academia, but not from her very public activism of over 4 decades. She was still traveling the country trying to rouse an abolitionist movement against prisons. In casting her vote for Democrat Barack Obama, Davis joined roughly 69.5 million Americans. But more than voting for the man, Davis voted for the grassroots efforts of the campaign organizers, those millions of people demanding change. When the network started announcing that Obama had been elected the 44th president of the United States, happiness exploded from coast to coast. It burst from the United States and spread around the anti-racist world. Davis, in the delirium of Oklahoma, people whom did not know came up and hugged her as if she was just a nobody before, and walked the streets right behind her. She saw people singing to the heavens, and she saw people dancing in the streets. And the people Angela Davis saw and all the others around the world who were celebrating were not enraptured from the election of an individual. They were enraptured by the pride of the victory for black people, for the success of millions of grassroots organizers. And because they had shown all those disbelievers who had said that electing a black president was impossible to be wrong. Most of all, they were enraptured by the anti-racist potential of a black president. But like my mother says, there's not much payout for potential, is there? President Obama was a symbol, yes, one of hope, one of progress, but also one of assimilationists. So much so that he was used to explain racism away, used to absolve it. Obama fell in line with the likes of Lincoln, Du Bois, Washington, Douglas, and many others who had flashes, true moments of anti-racist thought, but always seemed to assimilate under pressure. He rose to fame calling out Bill Cosby for blaming black people that dived headfirst into assimilation shortly thereafter, critiquing black people in the exact same ways. And just as with the black leaders before him, the assimilation didn't work. Segregationists climbed out of every hateful hole and out from every racist rock. They hated him, worked tirelessly to destroy and discredit him, and used him as a way to demean black people, to ramp up racist absurdity and stereotypes, once again calling back to their favorite bigoted playlist, playing all the classic racist tunes: Black Savage, Black Dummy, Black Do Nothing, Black Be Nothing, anything to smear Barack Obama and black people in the media. Racist politicians and media personalities work to figure out ways to tamp down the ego that they assume came with a black president, and came with being black in the time of a black president, and came with being black. People started to die. People continued to die. Children's lives ended up in the hands of police officers and vigilantes who placed no value on black humanity. Police officers and vigilantes who walk free. But just like in other parts of America's racist history, anti-racists pushed forth from the margins to fight back. Black president or not. Alicia Garza, Patrice Colliers, and Opal Tometi founded #Black Lives Matter as a direct response to racist backlash in the form of police brutality. Sound familiar? From the minds and hearts of these 3 black women, 2 of whom are queer, this declaration of love intuitively signified that in order to truly be anti-racist, we must also oppose all the sexism, homophobia, colorism, ethnocentrism, nativism, cultural prejudice, and class bias teeming with racism to harm so many black lives. The anti-racist declaration of the era quickly leaped from the social media onto shouting signs and shouting mouths at anti-racist protests across the country in 2014. These protesters rejected the racist declaration of 6 centuries that black lives don't matter. #Black Lives Matter quickly transformed from an anti-racist love declaration into an anti-racist movement filled with young people operating in local BLM movement groups across the nation, often led by young black women. Collectively, these activists were pressing against discrimination in all forms, in all areas of society, and from a myriad of vantage points. And in the reaction to those who acted as if black male lives mattered the most, anti-racist feminists boldly demanded of America to say #say her name, to shine light on the women who have also been affected by the hands and feet of racism. Perhaps they, the anti-racist daughters of Davis, should be held up as symbols of hope for taking potential and turning into power. More important, perhaps we should all do the same.